Sorry, was muted. Thank you, Lily. So let me get this presentation up. All right. So my name is Christina Doblera, and I am an associate data analyst at CALSTART. And today I'm going to be presenting some of our initial findings from our DOE-funded medium and heavy-duty electric vehicle data collection project. So for this project, we are actually gathering a data set of real-world operational data from 200 medium and heavy-duty vehicles. So our data set spans the entire country, but today I'm going to be focusing specifically on learnings from the Midwestern and Rocky Mountain regions, which both have significant seasonal variation. All right, so a little bit about the project. Our primary goal is to improve the public understanding of the performance of medium and heavy-duty EVs via data-driven insights regarding how these vehicles are actually performing in the real world. So this project is going to go until September 2023, so we're not quite finished, but we do have some data already to share. So we cover a wide range of vehicle segments, including transit buses, school buses, trucks, and off-road vehicles. But the Midwestern and Rocky Mountain region data I'm going to share is specifically bus data. We currently have operational data from over 150 different vehicles, publicly accessible and downloadable from the DOE's data platform, Livewire. So we'll share a link to that at the end of the presentation. And if you're interested, you can go and download that data. So here is a map of all of the vehicles we currently have in our data set. Again, it does span the whole country. It's very California-centric. So I'm going to be focusing specifically on our Midwestern Rocky Mountain fleets. So we have 36 vehicles from 6 different fleets coming from these regions. This includes 32 transit buses and 4 school buses. And the data I'm going to share spans from May 2018 to June 2022 with over 12,000 vehicle days and almost 1 million miles in total distance, which is quite large. So we have, like I said, decided to include some Rocky Mountain fleets just because we want to increase our sample size and better understand the impact of temperature on vehicles' efficiency. But yeah, first looking at the duty cycles that these buses are currently meeting. The plots here show daily total distance traveled on the left and daily total runtime on the right by fleet, where runtime is defined as the sum total time during which a vehicle has the key on. So on average, the transit buses in this data set traveled about 71 miles per day and reached a maximum daily distance of up to 231 miles. So the school buses had a slightly higher average daily distance at 86 miles, but generally a significantly lower maximum daily distance of 144 miles. So their spread is a lot smaller than the transit buses. That's also probably due to the fact that we just have a lot fewer school buses in our data set. In terms of runtime, each transit bus spent an average of 11 hours a day running, about 2 hours of which was spent driving, and each school bus spent an average of 3.6 hours a day running with 2.4 driving hours. Here we can visually look at this difference in distance and runtime by vehicle platform instead of fleet. So again, the transit bus category has a lot more vehicle days than the school buses. So transit buses distance and runtime both have much larger spread than the school buses. But generally, the school buses travel shorter distances and operate for shorter periods of time per day than transit buses. So here we're looking at one specific fleet in the Rocky Mountain region, which had trip level data. All the other fleets had day level data. But we can look at the distance and runtime for these buses for a single trip, and they had an average trip distance of about 59 to 73 miles and an average trip duration of 5 to 6 hours. So looking at actual vehicle performance and efficiency, in a single day, the transit buses in this data set use an average of 41.6% of their state of charge, while the school buses use a slightly higher amount of 54.4%. So this is important to note. The buses in their typical duty cycle don't fully deplete their charge, so that's good. On the right-hand side, we can look again at this one trip level data set. And here we can see the average state of charge at each hour of the day for each vehicle in the fleet. And only rarely do these vehicles actually fully leave their state of charge below 25%. They tend to have a state of charge that's between 50 to 80%. So this shows that really they could meet longer routes, and yeah, overall doing pretty well. So that's a good thing in terms of range. If we look at energy efficiency for these vehicles, here any energy consumption rate value, energy efficiency value that is plotted, if it is lower, that's a better thing. That means that they're using less energy per mile and have a higher operational range. So the plot on the left shows each vehicle's daily energy consumption against its total distance traveled. And we can see a positive linear trend between these two variables. So energy consumed increases with increased mileage, just as we might expect. But we can see a clear difference in the trend between the transit buses and the school buses that are in yellow. So here we have it by vehicle platform instead of fleet. So this means that the energy consumption rate or energy efficiency of the school buses is generally lower than that of the transit buses. So school buses will, at each distance value, use less energy. So the average energy efficiency of transit buses we found to be 2.93 kilowatt hours per mile, or about 16.5 miles per gallon equivalent, while the school buses have an energy efficiency of 0.93 kilowatt hours per mile, or nearly 37 miles per gallon equivalent, which is very high. And I will say, I do think that that is partly due to the fact that we have so few vehicles in the data set, but generally they are performing much better than the school, than the transit buses. All right. So looking at the effect of temperature on vehicle efficiency, we can see that at very low temperatures, and this was something that was definitely brought up in the Mountain Line presentation. At very low temperatures, bus efficiency increases pretty dramatically. So there is an optimal zone in mild temperatures between around 40 to 80 degrees, where energy consumption rate is low, but at very high temperatures and at very low temperatures that are uniquely found in our Midwest and Rocky Mountain fleets, within our DOE data set, there is a significant increase in how much energy it takes a vehicle to travel a mile. So here's another visualization. This shows the interplay between temperature and vehicle performance again by month. So during the coldest months of the year, there is a spike in energy consumption rate for the transit buses. And interestingly, the school bus energy consumption rate does remain pretty constant during the cold months. But both types of vehicles have increases in the summer. So during the fall and spring, energy consumption rate reaches a minimum. All right, so it is important to note that all of the vehicles in today's analysis have auxiliary diesel-powered heaters, so they're not 100% fossil fuel free. But what we can take away is that the use of auxiliary diesel-powered heaters reduces the observed impact of cold temperatures on electric vehicles' efficiency. So because all of the vehicles in this working group presentation had fuel-fired heaters installed, any impacts that we notice in cold temperature on vehicle efficiency would actually be more extreme without these heaters. So that is something to keep in mind. All right, so using this efficiency data, we can extrapolate just how much money could be saved per mile by using electric buses instead of conventional diesel-powered buses. And I know this was brought up in the Missoula presentation as well. But if we compare school bus and transit bus energy efficiency in miles per gallon equivalent to average fuel economy values for their conventional counterparts, we can see that the electric version of each of these vehicle platforms is much more efficient than their conventional transport. So I used EIA diesel and electricity projected prices to estimate the cost per mile of operating each of these vehicle platforms with each of these fuel types from 2021 to 2050. And you can see that on the right. So for a given fuel type, transit buses are always going to be more energy intensive and expensive to operate than school buses. But at the same time, the conventional versions of each of these vehicles are also more expensive per mile than the electric versions. So we can see that the cost per mile for diesel-based vehicles is going to increase over time, while that of the electric vehicles is going to decrease slightly over time. So as time passes, this gap in operational costs between EVs and diesel vehicles will become even greater. So in terms of actual fuel costs, you're going to save more and more money by using an EV as time goes on. All right, so I went through that very fast. So if we have any questions, we can go and go back to certain slides, but that's all I have for today. And as far as the operational cost savings go, we are currently working on a paper for the EVS 36 conference in Sacramento this June. And for this paper, we're going to be using our data set to further examine operational cost savings and develop a model to predict vehicle efficiency and operational range. So stay tuned for that if you're interested in the coming months. But otherwise, if you're interested in checking out our project resources, we do have a beautiful dashboard that my colleague Yin created to house and visualize our data for all of our participating vehicles. And if you want to download that data, you can go to the Livewire platform shown on the right and sign up to download. Thank you all very much for listening. And if there are any questions, we can answer those.